Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex. I am a real estate investor, and I want to make these videos to share with you guys the challenges I'm having, the struggles I'm overcoming, with the intention that you guys use this information to accelerate your own journey. So, today I want to talk about how to talk to sellers in pre-foreclosure. All right, so what are we going to cover on this video? First is how to contact sellers in pre-foreclosure, what options they might possibly have on how to basically speak to these people because they're in a distressed situation and it's a highly emotional one. And then also helping them to get through that denial stage that unfortunately so many of them struggle with. So starting off, how to contact people in pre-foreclosure. So their information is essentially public. The houses that are up for auction are public data in your county. You could search it, you could find it. But the problem is everyone else can search it and everyone else can find it too. So these people are getting so hammered by marketing and phone calls and mailers and stuff like that. You really have to throw the book at them or find some way of standing out to get them to respond to you or get their attention somehow. So, whether that's cold calling, texting, voicemailing, door knocking on lead behinds, door knocking is definitely going to be your best one to help you stand out because so few people are willing to do that extra thing and go door knock, right? So you really do have to kind of throw the book at them and find some way to stand out just because everyone else is also blowing them up. In like I was mentioning before, the best way I think to stand out is probably door knocking and being persistent and showing up and showing up and showing up and whatever, get a little orange sticky note, leave a note behind, hey, call me. Something along those lines. Find some way to stand out, be different than every other investor or whoever credit repair person who is calling them and hammering them. So once you do get a hold of them, what does that conversation actually look like? There are essentially two approaches here, right? So the first is to take the indirect approach, and the same approach you would take with any other seller in real estate. Hey, have you thought about selling your house? Essentially, that's what you open up with, or some variation of that. That is fine, especially if you're nervous about pressing the foreclosure pain button right off the rip. But it kind of leaves you in this possibility where they say, nope, not interested in selling. See you later. Close the door. Now you're like, oh hell, now what? I know they have an upcoming auction. I know they need help. I know they need to sell, but they're telling me no. Where do I go from here? One possible route out of that is I like the Daryl Ellison approach. Mr. Seller, totally correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm way out of bounds, I will shut the hell up. But I see something here about an upcoming auction on your house. And then they either say, yeah, that's happening, or no, I got it taken care of, or whatever. Then you can deal with that. But that is one way to basically take the indirect approach. And if they're still like saying, nope, I'm not selling, now you can bring that into the conversation and then take the conversation from there. Your second option here, which I prefer slightly, is the direct approach. So instead of saying, hey, are you looking to sell? You would come at it like, hey, I noticed your house was actually flagged by the lender. Essentially, I'm here to help. I just wanted to go over what options that you have. Do you have a second to talk about that? Or has anyone talked about what options you might have? Or another good one, I specialize in getting the lender off people's backs. And I wanted to see if you've explored some of these options. And roll into the conversation like that. And then from there, you take that intro, and then your next question is your goal to stay in the house or is your goal to sell the house? If their goal is to sell the house, great, you can go down that path, you know what to do. But if they say, my goal is to stay in the house, now your closer skills have to come out. And you have to genuinely help them try to stay in the house and talk about their situation and get all the information and talk about their potential solutions, right? So your job here is to eliminate all possible solutions that might, in their mind, let them think that they can stay in the house. If they actually can stay in the house and one of these solutions work, hell yeah, push them in that direction. That's emotional income. You help somebody save their house and you can totally feel good about that. So that's awesome. But 90% of the time, that's not the situation. These people are usually under the impression that they can save their house. In reality, they're either ignorant to the whole situation or have been misled in some way, thinking that there is a way for them to keep their house. So if they say, my goal is to keep the house, great. You genuinely go down their list of options and genuinely try to get them to do each one of those, and or if they can't do them, then disqualify each one of those. There's a ton of documents on the internet, how to stop a foreclosure. You can look at pretty much any of them. This is a one from Caroline Kane. In sub 2, just 12 ways to stop a foreclosure. And you can essentially go down this list, right? And help them try to go through each of these options, right? So pay off the loan balance. Okay, can you sell another house? Do you have any rental properties you could sell and pay off this house? No, okay. Pay off the arrears. Excuse me. Pay off the arrears. Do you have $20,000 or access to it to pay off the arrears and catch this loan back up to speed? Do you have any family members that can loan you that money? Do you have access to any credit cards or anything like that might be able to pay off those arrears? And then also, with the caveat, would you then have the cash to be able to pay back those credit cards so you're not just in terrible credit card debt? Partial FHA claim is going to be dependent on the loan. Repayment plan with the lender, sort of like a loan modification. Those 4 and 5 are going to be similar. There's lots of different options. Temporary restraining order would be dependent on the state. A forbearance agreement, that's a good option to explore. Some lenders are still doing that. Refinancing, short refinance, deed in lieu, short sale. The only one that you really need to be careful of is definitely, one of their options actually is bankruptcy and filing bankruptcy, and that will buy them time because that will stop the auction. But you're not an attorney, or you're probably not an attorney, so you can't recommend that to them. That would be not good for you and for them, because you don't fully understand the repercussions. You're not their attorney, you're not their legal advisor, so be very, 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 very cautious about that option. But then your goal is to, essentially, you take their list of options and you just go from the top. Like, okay, here is your essential options. Would this option A work? Okay, no, why not? Okay, all right, let's try the next one. Option B, no, okay, next one. And closers close doors. You go down the hallway, you disqualify, and then you disqualify, and then you disqualify. And either one of two things can happen. Either you get to the end of the hallway and they realize that none of those things are options and none of those things are possible, and they actually are going to have to sell the house. Or one of those options does work and you shove them through that doorway and said, okay, here we go, let's make it happen. Either way, it's a total win. Either you get to help them save their house, or you get one step closer to bringing them to the realization that if they do nothing here, it's going to have major, major consequences for them and their family. When you're talking to these people in pre-foreclosure, tonality is going to be huge. You need to be super sympathetic and super understanding. When you're not that good at this, it can kind of come off like you're just like reading off a script, or you're not sure what to say and you're just kind of like interrogating them or something like that. You got to be careful of that. These people are in distress situations and emotional situations, and there's probably some sort of life event that happened that caused this pre-foreclosure situation. So you need to be compassionate and understanding and totally hear them and be all ears and sympathetic for their situation. And you need to acknowledge, listen and acknowledge and repeat back to them what they're going through and make them feel heard and understood. You need to be on the same team as them. And the way you do that is through genuine concern. You need to be kind, not nice, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that essentially is you need to be willing to ask hard questions and say uncomfortable things because you genuinely care. One of my favorite quotes is, closers ask hard questions because they genuinely care. Someone who doesn't genuinely care and doesn't want to get uncomfortable with these people, someone says, yeah, we've got it handled, and then the person who doesn't really care says, oh, okay, sounds good, just save my number, if anything changes, give me a call. But the person who actually cares, they're going to dig into that, be like, okay, you say you have this handled, which option are you going with? And further dig into that. When is that happening? Why has it not happened yet? What's the holdup? How can I help here? And you want to be willing to get uncomfortable because you genuinely care, and it's going to lead to a better outcome for them. You also need to frame the conversation around them being the hero for taking care of this. So a lot of people are going to be kind of in that mindset, like head in the sand, total denial. I just want this to basically happen and then I get a fresh start, essentially. You need to break that frame in their head. And you need to more so frame it like, they think they're a failure and they just want this to be over with. No, a failure is not someone who finds himself in a hard situation. A failure is someone who, finds himself in that situation and doesn't do anything about it. They need to be the hero of this story, and they need to get into that hard situation and then do something to correct and save the day at the end and avoid the foreclosure. And then you need to get good at overcoming these objections and overcoming their denial. Common objections you're going to get are, one, I've got this taken care of. The best way I like to handle that is to really, like I was talking about before, drill into exactly how they're going to handle that. Maybe you've got that list printed out of those 12 different options. The best way I like to do this is, awesome, man, just so I can better help other sellers in the same situation. Which one of these 12 options did you end up going with? Okay, awesome. Your brother's going to pay off the arrears. I assume he's already sent the money for that? Well, no, he hasn't sent the money. Okay, I assume he's going to do that today, though? Well, no. Well, I assume he's got the money in the account, and you guys are just, wait until he gets off work today or something? Well, no. And continue. Now you can drill into that, figure out that that's actually BS. And now that you know that's BS, and you kind of like bring them to the conclusion that it's BS, hit them with a third-party story about like somebody who you worked with in the past that didn't have a backup plan. You could hit them with a third-party story about, Dave, can I tell you my biggest fear here? Yeah, go ahead. I was actually working with a girl named Alice about a month ago, and she was in a similar situation, and she thought her mother was actually going to pay off the arrears. Long story short, they're planning on paying it, and about a week before the auction, the mother got into a car accident, and now she has all these medical bills and these insurance bills and things like that, and she was no longer to pay off the arrears. And now Alice got foreclosed on. Her credit is totally ruined. She can't qualify for a house. She can't buy a car. Her credit's too bad to get an apartment, and her mother is in the hospital. And it's a terrible situation, and I would absolutely hate for something like that to happen to you. And then use that to basically say, like, okay, that here's a third-party story about what might happen, and then I'm going to follow up. When is your brother going to pay off these arrears? Tomorrow? Okay, I'm going to give you a call tomorrow afternoon after he supposedly does that, and we can work this out. Just because I know things fall through, and I would hate myself if something like that ended up happening, and I could have stopped it. Another objection you're going to get is, I have an attorney working on it. Okay, awesome. Sounds good. I'm glad you're on top of this. What exactly do you know that they're doing? And really dig into that. And make sure they know that a lot of people are under the impression that the attorney's stopping it or taking care of it or it's done now. In reality, I'd say 90% of the time, they're just delaying it. They're pushing it down the line. And most of the time, they're continuing to accrue legal fees and interest during this. And you could try to bring them to that realization through open-ended questions, and then also a third-party story about, Bob, who's in the same situation, and they were paying an attorney for months to put off the auction. But what they didn't realize is that they're actually accruing legal fees and interest the whole time, and they ended up still losing the house, and in the end, and they're way deeper in the hole because of all these attorney fees. And hit them with that third-party story and make sure that the attorney actually has an action plan and that they are actually stopping the auction and not just delaying it, essentially. Another objection you're going to get all the time is, I'm just going to let the house go and start fresh mindset. That whole, like, just head in the sand, I don't want to deal with this, I'm going to let it happen, and it's going to be gone and over with. For you to overcome this objection, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be the entire conversation and frameworking. But if you hear them say something like this, step one I like to do is get curious, dig into that, get them to go a layer or two deeper. So they might say, I'm just going to let the house go and get a fresh start. You're just going to let the house go? Like, yeah, this is, I've been thinking about this a lot. I want this to be over with. I want to move on with my life and XYZ. And now you can dig on, you could go one layer deeper even, or you could just grab onto whatever they say and whatever mindset that they kind of exposed you with that, and try to reframe that it's actually not a fresh start, and you're going to be dealing with this consequence for the next 7 years, and not going to be able to buy a house, probably not going to be able to rent an apartment, probably not going to be able to buy a car, not going to be able to get credit cards. And you want to basically bring them to that realization, most likely through the use of another third-party story. So you guys are probably picking up that third-party stories are extremely beneficial and a skill that you absolutely need to master. And it totally changes the framework from, hey, you're going to be dealing with this, and instead it's, hey, I was dealing with this other person, now they're actually having all these problems, and I would hate for that to happen to you. So third-party stories are going to be your absolute best friend. Master those, and you also have to be willing to ask hard questions too, to get them to basically take action, right? You got to get them to feel that pain, because if they put their head in the sand, they're just like numbing themselves and they're ignoring all of it. But when you start to ask these hard questions, like, what sort of impact is this going to have on your family if you choose to get foreclosed on? Like, that's a difficult question, but if you don't ask it, they're never going to feel that pain. They're never going to take action, and that's your fault that they got foreclosed on then, because you could have stopped it. So in conclusion, you need to be compassionate and understanding. You need to be kind, not nice. So you need to ask difficult things. You need to be willing to get uncomfortable, and maybe you're going to get yelled at, maybe you're going to get screamed at, maybe they're going to cuss you out, slam the door in your face, and point a gun at you or whatever. But you're there not to be, buddy buddy. You're there to actually try to help them, and because you genuinely care. So you need to be kind, not nice. You need to figure out what they're actually trying to accomplish and walk them down that path. So most people are going to say, I'm trying to keep them in the house. I'm trying to stay in the house, rather. And you need to walk them down that path and show them all their possible options and all the possible ways they could stay in that house and all the possible solutions to that issue. And then either disqualify or shove them through that door and do your best to help. And then finally, you need to overcome objections and ask hard questions because you genuinely care. And that's essentially the basics on how to find people in pre-foreclosure, how to talk to them, the common objections, and hopefully how you can start saving some people's houses and doing some deals. So let me know what you guys took away from this video and what you'd like to see on the next one.